When most of us think of Noah's Ark, we picture a children's story, right? A sweet old man, a big boat, pairs of cute, smiling animals. Well, today, we're going to set that version aside. We're going to dive into this account for what it really is. A profound and, let's be honest, at times terrifying epic about judgment, salvation, and the very heart of God.
But before we even open the scriptures, let me ask you something. It's a personal question. Have you ever looked around at the world, or maybe even just looked inside yourself, and felt this profound sense that something is just wrong? A spiritual exhaustion so deep it feels like the whole system is fractured beyond any hope of repair. I want you to hold on to that feeling. Because that feeling, that is exactly where this story begins.
You see, the story of Noah doesn't start with building a boat. No, it starts with a diagnosis, a divine assessment of a world that had completely spun out of control. And the diagnosis, it's absolutely devastating.
Just listen to the language here. Let it sink in. It's not just saying, oh, people did some bad things. No, it says the wickedness was great. And it goes deeper. The problem wasn't just the actions, it was the source, every intention of the thoughts of his heart. And the frequency? Only evil, continually. This is what theologians call total depravity. It doesn't mean everyone is as evil as they could possibly be. It means that sin had infected and corrupted every part of us, leaving the entire world broken.
So how does God react to all this? The Bible says he was grieved to his heart and that he regretted making humanity. Now, this is where we need to understand a really important idea, anthropomorphism. It's a big word, but it just means we're using human emotions to try and understand God's perspective. So is God admitting he made a mistake, like he was caught off guard? Not at all. This is the Bible's way of showing us the profound, holy heartbreak of a perfect father watching his children completely destroy themselves. It's the language of divine sorrow. But then, right in the middle of all that darkness, that universal brokenness, that divine sorrow, the entire story pivots on one single, stunning phrase. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Boom! Everything changes with those words. This is the turning point. This is where divine intervention begins.
Now here's where we so often get the sequence backwards. We tend to think, well, Noah was a good guy, so God decided to save him. But the text is crystal clear. Salvation never begins with our goodness. It begins with God's sight, when he, out of his own sovereign will, decides to look upon someone with favor, with grace.
And this just nails the heart of the gospel, doesn't it? Was Noah a righteous man? Yes, the Bible says he was. But why? Was his righteousness the cause of his salvation, or was it the result of it? The text puts grace first. Noah was a righteous man because God's grace had already found him. Grace came first, and out of that unearned, unmerited favor flowed a life of obedience. He wasn't saved by his good works, he was saved for them.
And the instrument for this grace is the ark. Think about this thing. It's a massive vessel, about 450 feet long. God gives these meticulous, detailed instructions. But did you ever notice what's missing? There's only one door, only one way in. And maybe most important of all, there's no rudder and no sail. Now, why on earth would you build a ship to survive a global flood and leave out the very parts you need to steer it? Because Noah wasn't the pilot, God was. The absence of a rudder, the absence of a sail, that's one of the most powerful theological statements in this whole story. It means the direction, the destination, the very survival of everyone on that boat was 100% in God's sovereign hands. All Noah could do was get in the door, trust, and wait. Sound familiar?
All right, now for the storm itself. We see it as a punishment, and it certainly was. But theologically, it's something even deeper, even more fundamental. It's an act of decreation, a systematic undoing of the world he had made.
I want you to think all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. What was the first great act of creation? God separates the waters. He brings order out of watery chaos. But in the flood, the Bible says the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. God is literally removing the boundaries he set in place, allowing creation to collapse back into that original, chaotic, watery state. That is the ultimate consequence of sin, the complete unraveling of God's perfect order.
And then, we get to one of the most tender and at the same time one of the most terrifying verses in the entire story. After Noah and his family and all the animals are safely on board, the text says simply, "And the Lord shut him in." Think about that for a second. With that one divine action, God's hand provides the ultimate protection for those inside, sealing them safe from the judgment to come. But that very same action seals the world outside to its fate. The door of grace was now closed.
after the flood has raged, after the waters cover everything, the text says, "But God remembered Noah." Now, in Hebrew, that word for remember, zakar, it means so much more than our English word. This isn't God saying, "Oh, that's right, Noah's in that boat." No, this is an action word. It means God began to act on Noah's behalf, according to the promise he'd made. It's the moment deliverance officially begins. God's memory isn't a passive thought. It is the trigger for his powerful, promise-keeping action.
So the waters finally go down, Noah steps out onto dry land, and what we see is a world that's been washed clean. It's a new beginning. And this part isn't just an ancient history lesson, it's the whole point. So what does this story of a new creation have to say to us right here, right now? Well, this new beginning looks a whole lot like the original creation, doesn't it? Once again, the earth emerges from water, and God gives the exact same command: be fruitful and multiply. It's a complete reset, a second chance for humanity. But this time, it's different. This time it's grounded in a new promise, symbolized by the rainbow, a covenant that God's judgment won't come by water again. It shows us that even after the most severe judgment, God's ultimate desire is always restoration, not just retribution. And in the end, if we look at this with New Testament eyes, we see that this entire epic story is pointing to someone greater. You see, the ark was a vessel made of wood that saved one family from a flood of water. But Christ is our spiritual ark, saving all who enter into him through faith from the final judgment of God. Through him, we pass through the waters of judgment and we emerge as a new creation. He is our one door. He is our rudderless salvation. He's the one in whom we must place all of our trust.
So we end right where we started, with a question for you. If Christ is our ark of safety, and if we who are in him are truly a new creation, if the very same Spirit of God who hovered over the dark waters at the beginning of time now lives in us, what does that mean for that brokenness we feel? What chaos in your life is he waiting to bring his order to? What new world, what new life is waiting to be born from within you?